What's up, guys? Ballin' with Blizzy, back with another video, and today I want to talk about who could potentially be this year's Tee Higgins, a guy who was drafted outside the top 20 receivers last year, but finished as wide receiver 4 in points per game in 2024. Let's jump on over to Underdog Fantasy and take a look. The guy I think is going in a range where Tee Higgins was. Tee Higgins last year finished at 49.4 ADP. And this is some poetic justice. George Pickens is my guy this year that I think really fits a lot of the Tee Higgins mold. He's going at 50.3 in average draft position right now. And I think there's a lot of similarities, starting with they're both playing with an alpha, right? George Pickens was the alpha last year in Pittsburgh. This year, CeeDee Lamb is the alpha. Last year, Jamar Chase finished as wide receiver 1, had a massive year, and still allowed Tee Higgins to have a ton of tremendous games, finishing as wide receiver 4 in points per game. George Pickens, I think, getting traded from Pittsburgh to Dallas. Yes, he does go from a number 1 to a number 2, but I think it's going to work wonders. Number 1, they have a much more explosive offense, and they have competent quarterback play, something that George Pickens hasn't had in his Pittsburgh tenure. Secondly, playing with that alpha receiver. CeeDee Lamb is going to get his. CeeDee Lamb is going to be the engine that pass game runs through. But as we saw last year in Cincinnati, that's totally fine if you have a wide receiver 2 in an explosive offense with a quarterback who's going to throw for a lot of yards. If we look at Caesars Sportsbook right now, and we look at season passing yards projected, Dak Prescott has the 3rd highest projected pass yards at 3,900.5 for this upcoming 2025 season. Of course, Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow are 1 and 2 in pass yards. And I think that's really important. I think when you're talking about how does a wide receiver 2 get home, if Dak Prescott's going to throw for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, yeah, CeeDee Lamb's going to get his 1,500 yards. He's going to get his 10 touchdowns. That's a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns left over for someone else to get. And George Pickens is a guy who's going to stretch the field vertically, give you some of those big time shots while CeeDee Lamb is, drawing safety coverage in the middle of the field. And I think that's really going to be a boon. George Pickens last year averaged over 15 yards per reception. And I think he's going to play a very similar role for the Dallas Cowboys this year. The other thing to keep in mind and why I think this sets up well is that recipe that worked for the Bengals last year, not intentionally, but it worked in terms of fantasy points. They had an atrocious defense. They got into a lot of shootouts, and what that presented was an opportunity for the offense to have to go out there every single possession, every single drive, throw the football, push the tempo, push the ball to their 2 best playmakers in Jamar Chase, Tee Higgins. You even saw Chase Brown get home in what wasn't a very friendly script, but him in the pass game, that worked well. I think this really sets up in terms of the Dallas Cowboys. They're a dome team. They're going to get into a lot of shootouts. Their defense really took a hit last year. I don't expect much to change. They didn't address much in the offseason on that side of the ball. I think they're still going to be forced offensively to put up points, keep pace with the defense that's allowing the other team to put up points. And I think that really sets up well for George Pickens. He's going right in that same range on Underdog Fantasy that Tee Higgins was in. Yes, he's a wide receiver 2, but I think he's so explosive, so talented, so young that when he doesn't have all the defensive coverage, he doesn't have the safety help over the top on his side of the field every single time, they've got to be concerned with CeeDee Lamb. He's the number 1 target. He's had monster seasons. He's going to be the focal point of defensive attention in terms of the passing game. I think that lets George Pickens absolutely feast on those deep dig routes, on those vertical shots. I really think Dak Prescott is going to love having that secondary guy, because you think back to last year and really the secondary target in that passing attack for the Cowboys was Jake Ferguson. He's a good player. He can run up the seam. He's good in the short areas. He has good hands. He's reliable, but he's not really the guy that you want to be the secondary target in your passing attack. That means you don't have a very vaunted passing attack. So I think that's where George Pickens comes in. He's going to stretch the field. He's going to be reliable. He's a playmaker. That's what he does. Acrobatic catches. He's a big, strong, physical receiver. And at this point in Dak Prescott's career, he's not a mobile quarterback anymore. He's a pocket passer. He wants to stand back there, feed the ball to his playmakers. And I think that's why George Pickens is really going to shine in 2025. If you've got a guy that is being drafted outside the top 20 to 25 at the receiver position, and you think he can finish top 5 or top 10 in points per game, let me know what you think in the comments below, and like and subscribe.